Hi, my book editing tip for consistency: create your own style sheet. I'm Iris Marsh and I help indie authors with their manuscripts so that they can publish with confidence. And by the end of this video, you'll have a much better idea of what a style sheet is and what you can do to create your own and how it can help you edit your manuscript. So let's just dive right in.
Okay, so what is a style sheet? So a style sheet is essentially a piece of paper that will help you spot inconsistencies and make decisions about how to handle certain things like numbers, style decisions, character consistency, punctuation, abbreviation, and so on. So it's one of the most important tools that the editor has, along with the style guide. And the style guide is the reference work that you use to build your style sheet. So for instance, in the US, the Chicago Manual of Style is the most often used for commercial fiction and nonfiction. And for academic works in the field of psychology, you have the ABA, that's the standard. And in the UK, you have New Hart's Rules or Oxford Style Manual as the most common resource. So that there's generally a guide, depending on the region or topic of your work, that is the most often used. And to build your style sheet, ideally you have access to the right style guide for your target audience, but it's also possible to build your style sheet without it because it is still a choice in most things, and you can always leave the more complicated choices for your editor. The goal of a style sheet is consistency. So often, as long as you do something consistently, it's okay, even if it's not necessarily what's in the style guide. And aside from a style sheet or guide, you also need a dictionary, such as Merriam-Webster's online dictionary for the spelling of words, and also sometimes usage, as they do have some guidelines on usage. And you'll likely use a variety of internet sources for fact-checking whenever necessary. So what is on a style sheet? So we're going to dive a little bit into the different elements of the style sheet, and I'll show you some examples. And please note, each editor has their own preferences for how they organize things, so please don't feel like this is the only way you can do it. You can organize your information in whatever way works for you. And this is the easiest part of the style sheet. It's the basic info. So you start with the manuscript title, the author name, and the references you use. So here you can see in the example title intertwined. It's one of my novels, author Iris Marsh, which is me. References used: Chicago Manual of Style 18th edition, newest edition, as of this filming, the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, Urban Dictionary, and other various online web pages for fact checking. Then next up we have a section I call typography and language preferences, with which are choices related to things like whether you use US or UK English spellings and stylings of chapter titles, if you have them, like title case, which has capital T, capital C, or a sentence case, so only the first letter is capitalized, how you use letters as letters or words as words, or how you style letters as letters or words as words, and when you use other stylistic elements like italics or bolding or other types of typography, like with signs or text messages. So here's an example where I've outlined like US English. I use chapters as chapter plus the numeral, so chapter 1, chapter 2, etc. Chapter subheadings in title case below, like the darkness below, something like that. that is at letters kept in quotation. So here I also have an example. It really helps to have an example sentence behind your rule so that you have an idea of what you mean in case it ever becomes unclear. Then here in this example I have italics for emphasis, book titles and thoughts, and I use the typography style monospace for text messages. So these are just some examples that you don't have to follow or anything like that. Then I usually have a section for abbreviations. Abbreviations are usually more common in non-fiction than fiction, but they do happen. So this contains a list of abbreviations occurring in your manuscript. Usually it's sort of alphabetically. You can also order them by order of occurrence if that's more convenient for you, or if you find that easier to check your manuscript. And this type of list is especially helpful when you need to check whether you've introduced the abbreviation correctly at the first instance. So for instance, for fiction, that's not always necessary to introduce the abbreviation, and it can help you make an informed decision on whether an explanation of the abbreviation may be necessary or not. So here's an example of a list. So CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, MRI, magnetic resonance imaging, and I've done the parentheses, no need for full version because most people know what an MRI is. And then this is a weird fiction example, FROST, Federation for Research on Synthetic Tyranny. And this abbreviation is purposely not revealed until near the end of the story, right? What it means, because otherwise that would be a dead giveaway. So that's kind of how you can use it. Then I like to have a section with some big picture elements. I only use this for fiction. I rarely use it for non-fiction. And these are for things like the narrative tense, the POV structure, unusual elements, and the viewpoint characters if there's more than one. And sometimes I will also add specifics about their tone of voice if their narration is different. So here's another example. So for instance, the narrative tense, usually past tense is used, but you can also use present tense, or you can shift, although that's unusual. So here in this example, I have past tense, and then there's point of view structure, like first, third person, omniscient, first person, etc. Here I have POV, third person, limited, and therefore two characters, Jane Doe, John Smith. I know, great creativity with the names here for the example. And then if there is anything unusual, so for instance, here in this example, there are diary entry chapters from an unknown character who was later revealed as the villain, and these diary entry chapters are in first person. But other unusual things about the narrative structure could be, for instance, dual timelines, or if you have like a scene or a chapter that's like full, call that again? Oh, when there's like an entire stream of thoughts. Doesn't matter. So anything that's unusual, like if you have reverse timelines or a past and a present timeline or whatever, this is where you put it, or where I put it. Then world building rules. I generally don't use this for non-fiction, but all fiction has some level of world building, just some more than others. But some things to consider here are like the power structures, the government, who's in charge. Like even in a realistic fiction, this can be different than in our real world, as you usually won't name the actual current president. It's usually fictional. Notes about culture and society, or the things that are relevant. If you have a magic system, stuff about the magic system, or in science fiction, like what kind of science you have, stuff like that. So here Um, when you check your manuscript and you fill out this portion, it's extremely useful to only use what's actually in your novel. Don't add other things to it. It's your story, so you know what's meant to be there, but your reader won't. So if you only use the things that are in your manuscript, it will give you a much better sense of whether your world building actually holds together, or if there are gaps or inconsistencies that will make things very difficult to follow for your reader. So here in this example, you can see I just have like a section political, ruling government that poses as democratic, but in reality the AI robots with world power. And then the AI, with some explanation of that, self-thinking entities that have advanced far beyond humans. They can create their own bodies, making them identical to humans in appearance. Ooh. So that kind of stuff. Then I have a section on capitalization. Yep. How you will capitalize certain types of words in your manuscripts. And it also helps to add examples in your manuscripts. You can generally find the answers for what kind of word you need to capitalize or not in your style guide or by Googling. This isn't about individual words, it's about a certain group of words, right? If it's really an individual word, you put it in your word list. So for instance, you put here whether races or species are capitalized, capitalization of things like professional titles, royal titles, specific events, awards, degrees, and so on, depending on what you have in your story. And if you have any of these, then even when you think certain words should be capitalized, if you're absolutely certain, check it. Because sometimes you think things are capitalized or not capitalized, and it actually turns out to be something different than you thought it would be. So here in this example, races are capitalized, wood elves, domani, some examples. Royal titles only when used as a proper noun, so Queen Sabran, but the Queen of England. Professional titles capped when preceding a personal name, so Dr. Drake, but lowercase when following a name or in general use, like the doctor or Draco More, comma, neurologist, or doctor, if you want to be very generalistic about it. And full administrative bodies capitalized. So the Department of Neurology, the not great but convenient hospital, but in general usage, the hospital. Again, it helps to put some examples behind your rules. Then the next section, numbers. So for instance, all kinds of numbers, so not just numbers, but also dates, percentages, phone numbers, times of days, measurements, all those things. The common rule is to spell out all numbers up to 100, all numbers of 100,000, 100,000, unless it causes awkwardness. But within other genres, especially a lot of non-fiction, it's common to use the alternative rule of the Chicago Manual of Style, which is to spell out all numbers up to 10. And then the rest is numeric. So here is another example. Here in this example, I used the general rule, write out numbers up to 100. Then use numerals for phone numbers, even in dialogue, because writing out numbers, phone numbers in dialogue is not great. Although you could. But time of day written out if whole or half with time of day, so 1 o'clock in the morning. But specific time in numerals with AM and PM, so here 7:34 AM, and numerals for percentages, so 9%. And again, these are just examples, they're not like the rules you have to follow. Then I have a section on usage. This is especially helpful in fiction, but can also be used for general rules that you tend to forget. such as the use for that or which is also often confused in nonfiction, or farther further, which I also always confuse and have to remind myself of. Or if you have dialogue in your nonfiction manuscripts, which is also common, then usage can also be helpful. So for instance, here I have that which, that is restrictive, no comma, which is restrictive, use comma, then a while, because that's also always a thing. A while is a noun, while a while means for a while. Then I allow sentence fragments, which is more common in fiction than non-fiction. And I will allow grammatical inaccuracies in dialogue, especially when it fits the characters, because we usually don't talk very grammatically correct. I don't even know if that's good. Yeah, it is. Then, punctuation. We love punctuation. This is where you put everything to do with punctuation marks and where you'll deal with the ever annoying commas, such as whether you use the Oxford comma, whether you always use it after an introductory phrase, or if you leave it out if it's very short, whether you use a comma before either or to, the terminal comma, at the end of the sentence, and so on. You can also put in what kind of ellipses you use, how you handle single and plural possession, periods with abbreviation, although you can also put that in the abbreviation section, and stuff on hyphenation, and everything else. For hyphenation, you can also add some general rules about compound adjectives, with some examples where you can just add the compound adjectives you come across in the word list. So here, example, Oxford comma, no comma before either or to, at the end of a sentence, I like him too, but comma in the middle of the sentence, I too enjoy long walks. Stupid sentence, I don't know. Anyway, hyphen for compound adjectives formed with noun plus adjective like white paint fence. So, then comes the word list. And this is where I put all the words I come across where you've had to look up how to spell it, or things that you often spell incorrectly, or words with more than one spelling. And this is where you'll use your dictionary a lot. So some common choices that you will have to make are all right versus all right, among, amongst, and the other variants of that, like backward, backwards, blonde without an E versus blonde with an E, grey or grey, which is more US or UK spelling, and sneaked or snuck, for instance, or traveled with double L or traveled single L, stuff like that. So here an example for ABC. I can usually group them together. I have alright, and then what kind of word it is. So in this case, alright can be an adverb or an adjective, among, preposition, backward, adverb, co-worker, so without the hyphen after co, as a noun. And you will also want to note some words that are written differently depending on the form, like run-in as noun, I had a run-in, or run-in as verb, I run in something. Print out as verb or print out as noun. Work out as noun, work out as verb. Yeah. Long term as adjective, but long term without a hyphen as a noun. And then finally, there will be words that you think are correct, but you'll discover are actually written differently. This happens a lot because language tends to change, especially concerning decisions whether a noun is open, hyphenated, or closed, and it will depend on the dictionary you choose. So for example, wine glass as one word, workroom as one word, co-worker, no hyphen, T-shirt is a common mistake. Most people do the lower T, but it's really capital T, shirt. Cybersecurity, one word, or rearrange, also one word, and all the other verbs with r usually no longer have a hyphen after the r. So your word list is one of the elements they will probably refer to the most as you go through your manuscript, and you will keep adding to it as you edit. Then your character list. Mostly for fiction writers, it's not as crucial for non-fiction, but it can be very helpful if you also have vignettes or client stories in there to kind of keep the details straight. So this is where you add the names and important character details. And like with world building, it's important to only add what's important, what's actually in your manuscript. So it helps you notice inconsistencies, inaccuracies, or missing information. And it can also help you show misspellings of names and stuff like that. And there are a lot of ways to organize a character list, and I keep kind of changing it until I find what works. At the moment, I list the most important characters in bold, and then add their information underneath. And a tip from Amy Schneider in the book The Chicago Guide to Editing Fiction, which I highly recommend, is to add chapter numbers to each bit of information you put in the sheet, because that way, if an eye color changes halfway, you can more easily search for the places you put in the other color to change it. For minor characters, I usually create a heading for them, like for instance a group if they happen to be workers at a particular place, or belonging to some other kind of group, like a religious group or whatever. And then I put their names in there, or a descriptive name if no actual name is given, along with the whatever bit of description is in there of them. And again, you can put the chapter numbers behind them to see where these things are mentioned. So here, an example, Jane Doe, DMC, I put that there as information. She, her, works as a PI, has green eyes, and that's mentioned in chapter 1, married to John Doe. And then I like to underline it so I know John Doe is also in the character sheet. Chapter 3, enjoys outdoor sports like rock climbing and surfing, so it's a bit of personal information. Then John Doe, he became married to Jane Doe, also underlined, always wears a tie to work, secretive about his job. Chapter 3. So again, just as an example. Places. Very similar to characters. It's the list of all the places you mention in your manuscript with their description. Again, only the description that's in your manuscript. This ensures that you'll name the things the same way each time, and it's for consistency and just logic in your descriptions. And you can again add the name and the description and the chapter number. And if there are any inconsistencies, like a character walking up 4 flights of stairs to their apartment in one chapter, while they're looking outside their window at street level in another chapter, this is where you're most likely to catch that mistake. So here an example, Jane and John's home, 2-story house, French windows, white pink picket fence, chapter 3, interior nondescript white walls with only one picture of the couple on their wedding day above the stairs, also chapter 3. Then just miscellaneous, Main Street, Evil Corp, Tammy Spark. So how you usually spell those things. Timeline. I always find it very helpful to have a timeline with short descriptions of your scenes and chapters, and add timing as well, as this makes it easier to check for the passage of time, and add important plot points as well to help spot plot holes. Sometimes getting the timing can be a bit tough if no specific time is mentioned, but then you'll also know if this is something you might want to clarify or not. And again, only information that's in the actual manuscript. So yeah. Yeah, it also helps you ensure that all the time that's lapsed and that any distances that are covered are realistic. And yeah, so here's an example. Chapter 1, Wednesday, early morning. Jodo investigates the body of a recently murdered man. Not yet able to identify the body, she discovers a ticket to a bar nearby that might offer a clue to his identity. At first sight, it seems the man was killed by a shot in the head. So that's just the important information of chapter 1. And it gives you the timing, Wednesday, early morning. So you can work from there. Alright.
So I hope that after this video you see the value of a style sheet when you're self-editing your novel. And it's also great to have before you book an editor, as it'll save them time because you already have your style sheet, and in that way it will also save you money. So if you'd like to know more about style sheets, I think a great resource is the Chicago Guide to Editing Fiction by Amy Schneider, and I'll put a link to the book in the description. It's very easy to understand, and she gives lots of editing tips as well as examples of how to compile your style sheet, and also examples of how to handle certain issues. And if you'd like more tips on editing, you can also sign up for my free self-editing course, where you'll learn more about each stage of editing and how you can do it yourself. Always handy. And you can find the link in the description. And for more writing and self-editing tips, also have a look at my other videos. And if you enjoyed this one, please hit the like button and subscribe so you can stay updated for more content. And thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.